welcome to Bots and Beyond, your weekly dose of all things automation, mixing up end user, vendor and consultant experience to create your go-to podcast for bot-related insights. I am your host, Wayne Butterfield. So thank you for joining Bots and Beyond. This week, I have a very special guest for our first episode, Kieran Gilmurray. I'm going to call Kieran the facilitator. If you haven't seen Kieran's posts online, he is the godfather when it comes to written content about the great and good of RPA and automation. So it's a real honor to have Kieran on my first episode. Kieran, we're going to start with a who, what, and why introduction from yourself. So, yeah, over to you.
Oh, fantastic. Look, absolutely delighted, Wayne, to join you on number one here. So hopefully, to goodness, we'll have a bit of fun and then pass over some knowledge that folks will be interested in as well. Well, look, as you mentioned, I'm Kieran. I consider myself a digital transformation, intelligent automation, data analytics, and robotic process automation expert. And the reason I use the word expert is because I have had so many fails over the years that I've had to learn from, so many painful lessons. It's phenomenal. I don't think anybody gets it right first time around, but I've learned to dig myself out of holes. And then thankfully, I've had lots of successes as well off the back of that. And then my what do I do? I hope I build data-driven, automated, digitally empowered businesses that are 100% focused on delivering value for employees and customers. What do I do, or why do I do it? Well, look, I really love solving complicated problems. I'm goal-driven. I like getting things done. Once I say I'll do something, it will happen. And I love using intelligent automation, data analytics, digital transformation, robotics, all those toolings to make things happen. And I think for the last 27 plus years, I've sat between technical teams in the business, translating, hopefully effectively more often than not, to try and make a difference, as it were. I have a lot of fun on LinkedIn, as you mentioned, and that fun is just sharing my knowledge with other people, because I've seen too many times where folks have got really poor information, or they've paid really expensively for information that is or should be pretty freely available. And I'm really fortunate because I've had folks like yourself, or the great and the good of automation world, those folks who've been in the trenches, been there and done that. They're all jumping in just out of the genuine goodness of their heart and their desire to help other people. So look, really delighted to be here. Hopefully the goodness is allowed to folks learning, and we'll have a bit of fun as we do this as well.
Thanks for that, Kieran. Amazing intro. And that's really one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have you on. This amount of knowledge that you have and how open you are to sharing it, which I guess brings us on to a topic which I know you haven't discussed so far in great detail on LinkedIn, hence why we're going to talk about it today. And it's the citizen developer. And it's starting to get a lot of traction, whether that is hype, whether that is hoax. That's something we'll discuss today. I want to talk a little bit to kick us off around a term that you coined with me, digital dexterity. Talk to me a little bit about that and its relevance to the topic.
Yeah, so look, I'm excited about doing the citizen developer article. Interestingly, about 25 real world experts now jumping in to help guide the content of that. I'm not fixed, Wayne, on anything. Does it work? Does it not work? But when we talked about digital dexterity, the topic came up. And I have to say, when I'm talking about digital dexterity, what I'm talking about is the desire and ability of employees themselves to embrace, existing or emerging technologies to try and achieve better business outcomes, to try and make their world a little bit better. Remember, we have large quantities of millennials and Gen this and Gen that coming into workplaces who are so used to using tech. And sometimes inside of organizations, when they walk in the door, we bring them into, age tech. We bring them into siloed organizations, something really, really hierarchical. And what we've got is a great mass of individuals who want to make change happen, who are highly technically influenced, who are highly technically capable, and we're not giving them the tools that they need every single time. Now, is some of that IT arrogance? We know best. Is some of that years of painful experience where you've given people the tools, they've went out and they've built little bits of something that won't scale, that aren't secure, that you've a pile of different IT problems? I'm not sure. But organizations these days need to be faster. They need to be digital. They need to pivot. As we'll have seen with COVID, they need to rapidly change. This digital forward mindset absolutely has to be there and present in every organization, in each and every one of the employees from top to bottom. It's not just a matter of skills, digital dexterity. It's an attitude. It's a way of working, and if we're not enabling a digital workforce these days, then why are we even in business? So I'm excited about digital dexterity. I'm excited that there may be a method, i.e. citizen developers, to make that digital world a reality, to change formal systems, to cut through the politics, to cut through the culture and whatever else, to make stuff happen. But let's see if that's even possible. And I'm not going in with a fixed mind. I'll seek opinions from, pro and against and in between, and we'll work out through writing this article and producing this research what is a method that may or may not work. But one thing is certain, the world has changed. The technology and the tooling is there. Now, how do we enable that tooling in as many people as we can to make as big a difference as possible?
Kieran, you spoke about arrogance of IT there. Certainly, it's a topic I think we need to dig into a little bit more. Talk to me about what you mean by arrogance of IT.
Well, I think, Wayne, part of it's tongue in cheek, part of it's reality. If you look at arrogance, what do we mean? That's excessive confidence in one group's abilities. And very often, again, I can talk confidently about this because I was probably that idiot numbers of years ago that said only IT can deliver all of the solutions. Only IT know what they're doing. But let's be honest, Wayne, developers are made, they're not born. The business and folks come up with tons of ideas. How did iPhones get in place when IT loved Blackberries, for example, years ago? We have IT teams who at times, at worst, believe they're the only source and only font of information and everything is secure and it will just work if you use them. But again, how many folks in IT are used to not writing good documentation, who haven't followed security protocols and all the good governance that surround the quality production of systems? Again, when you look now at this moment in time, why are the business themselves frustrated with IT? Some of that genuinely is that organizations have cut their IT spend and then complain that they can't get what they want. But that's only one half of the coin. Some of that is also, and I was, again, as I said, that IT person saying no. Some of that is just that IT is saying no. The business has an imperative. The business needs to move quicker than ever. And therefore, they need an IT team or technology or need to be given the tools that allow them to do the work that they need to do. We need to find that balance. Good, secure code, well-built, scalable tech with an IT team and a business team that are working really well together. We can't have the old days where IT are arrogant and move at the speed of snails and don't meet business needs. Equally speaking, we can't have a very poor shadow IT group who go out and build or bring things that break. We need to build scalable or at least large volumes of mass of automations or digital Legos that allow an organization to function. If you imagine in a global organization, 1,000, 10,000 or 20,000 people, imagine if each of the employees automated or digitized or built a Lego brick that saved them 10 or 20 minutes a day. You're talking about, hundreds of thousands of hours of new capacity and potentially millions of pounds of new revenue. I've sometimes seen the business being arrogant as well. They understand it, they know better. They've had an iPad at home and therefore they're an IT expert. Neither extreme works. Therefore, how do we create a better, brighter, digitally dexterous future where folks have the tools that allow them to go faster in a digital manner, that allow organizations to pivot, that allow them to change, that don't rely on IT mass produced products or central applications that aren't doing what folks inside of the business or customers want. The days of arrogance are gone. The days of working together absolutely have to be here if they've never been here before.
I love the concept of marginal gains. I think that is where citizen developer and benefits really comes together. And I think, as you said before, having the right tools with the right people is obviously going to be really important. I guess there's two things I'd love to get your opinion on. Like, who do you trust? And I said the right people. How do we even know who the right people are? So, who do you trust? And I guess, how do you govern this?
Interesting question, Wayne. I start out with trusting everyone until I'm proven otherwise, if that makes sense. And the problem is, will people make mistakes? Absolutely. Can folks go about automating the wrong, broken processes that exist within inside organizations? True, happen tons of times. I've been on the receiving end of that and then asked to support it, to build it, to grow it or whatever else, and all those things that cost a pile of money. But equally speaking, I prefer going in and trusting everyone, giving everybody, a mass of tools. And if you look at the digital workforce that's coming through, they're so used to what you might call, in an ugly term, hacks. In other words, saving themselves 10 and 20 minutes a day by building a macro, by downloading an application, by embedding something in Google or Edge to allow them to work faster, better, quicker. And that pulls to that point around marginal gains. You have 10,000 employees. They build, something that saves them 10 minutes each. Very often we sit in automation world going, but they haven't built a Lego that I can scale. To some extent, true. And then wouldn't it be amazing if we built something that the COE governed, that a center of expertise signed off, that we knew was secure, that wasn't going to break anything? Absolutely. And can we do that? Absolutely. And we can make a Lego available for lots of people. But equally speaking, I have my own 10 minutes of saves every day that are relevant to me and relevant to my working day. And therefore, why should I need an IT team or a center of automation expertise to sign that off? Give me the tool. I'll make a difference to my working day. And in that imaginary firm for a moment of 10,000 people, if 1,000 people built Legos that were reusable or at least saved them time, or 10,000 did, imagine the marginal gains that an organization could have. And it's not only the business gains. How often have you started an organization where everybody's told you what you can't do? I'll tell you what, wouldn't it be a really exciting place to go into an organization that gave you a great number of tools, put you on the right track, be that the governance or whatever else, kept you within guardrails so you don't break anything really, really badly, trained you how to use these tools, and spent their time talking about how much confidence they have in you, in your colleagues, talking about a desire for you to build components that make your day easier, talking about a desire that gets you to build tools that you can share with your colleagues so that the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, so that everybody is driving forward. That's the kind of organization I want to work in, not one where developers or arrogant IT are the gods who tell me what I can't do. It frustrates me when I've seen the no culture, and it excites me when I've heard, looked, and been part of the go for it culture. And the marginal gain side of things is one of the benefits of the go for it culture. But again, yourself, Wayne, someone's going to hit gold. If you have 10,000 people thinking and working, you're going to mine gold in amongst that. Someone's going to come up with an idea, or someone's are going to come up with an idea, and that the idea that he or she or they come up with could explode the organization, could explode people's productivity. That's the type of organization I'm excited by, and I love the wisdom of the crowd. I love hackathons. I love getting people to come forward with brilliant ideas, because they will change the world. You can't expect your business or your IT team to understand your customers and understand the environment that you work in, understand the digital future, understand what customers want. Organizations that work with the mass of people to enable them, to drive them forward, to listen to their ideas, to take those and explode them out. Those are the ones in this 21st century that are going to explode. And if I were in those teams, as I said, I would want to be part of that digitally literate group that was supported to produce brilliant things to allow an organization to become a brilliant business.
Amazing. I think if I was to, I'm sold, right? So, but I
haven't worked out how to do it.
But if we were to think about, that's the positives, and then I guess what we have to think about is, as well as uncovering gold, we're probably going to step on some landmines, and it's finding that right mix of positive and negatives. Because I guess what we can't foresee is that everything is going to be that nirvana. Although it sounds absolutely amazing, we know that different people have different levels of capability. They have different opinions. Probably they have different abilities to take or not take risks and all of that good stuff. So I think governance is obviously going to be really key in that. I think one of the things I've seen on LinkedIn recently around the whole concept of citizen developer is that it's potentially a ploy to sell more licenses from a vendor perspective. So there is obviously always a pro, hey, look, marginal gains, you can get these micro automations, which, I'm seeing in larger organizations, at least, this addition of the Lego blocks, as you would explain them, hitting a huge value. And when people talk about scale in automation, it feels like the only way, or one of the ways that you can really accelerate scale and accelerate your ROI is by having this citizen developer concept. Not saying it is the perfect answer, not saying it doesn't come without risk, but certainly feels like there is a need here. And I've had some really good conversations with vendors recently that have really opened my eyes up to this way of working. The downside of that obviously is from a license perspective. So there are people, I would say, who are going to be listening now who are saying, yeah, but it's a ploy to send more licenses. It's a ploy for the vendor to earn more money. What's your thoughts on that?
As you say, Wayne, I think it's pros and cons. If you look at the worst side of allowing anyone access to the tooling, you could end up with code chaos, macro misery, Python puke, for want of a better phrase. I've seen those things happening time and time again. Do I think vendors or the wrong vendors are attempting to sell licenses? Maybe. I go back to the Wild West days of RPA, and I look at the drive just to sell licenses. And I remember sitting in multiple conferences 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, with everybody asked by the chair of the conference, put up your hand if you've got 50 licenses or more, and everybody, keeping their hands down, bar one person in the room who was celebrated. And nobody actually asked the question, which is essential, is, okay, what were the business outcomes you achieved with the licensing, with the tooling, with the platform? Nobody thought to ask the question. But if I hired 50 employees tomorrow morning and they sat idle for 90% of the time, would I tell my mates of the wonderful mistake that I've actually made? Of course you wouldn't. And licenses are the same thing. The good vendors are there to try and help and grow and make success of your business. Because if you grow and you make success of your business, then of course they're going to sell more licenses. Of course they're going to use you as a reference point. And again, if you spend whatever it is, $500, $3,000, $5,000 on a license, it isn't cheap. But if you build the right business case behind it, and you realize both, time saving, cash saving, drive new business outcomes and new opportunities, drive new incomes from automation or digitization that's way in excess of the licensing, then you've already won. It doesn't matter how many licenses you have or what the licenses actually cost. Have I seen vendors attempt to push licenses still? Yes, of course. But remember this, that's not a bad thing. You need to, understand your business case. You don't need to buy licenses you don't want. No vendor is forcing you to buy a license. You have to pay for it yourself. You have to understand and build a business case your CFO can actually stand over. But again, it's a case of, give people the tools that they need and then put the guardrails around it to stop that code chaos or that Python puke. Maybe, and again, there'll be lots of ways, and organizations will work differently and their cultures will be different in their tech teams. It's not to say that IT teams or COEs given the tools can't create great things. It's not that you can't have citizen advocates who maybe understand the processes and with more guidance and more direction can actually provide the ideas that allow you to do something. I think there is lots of ways that this can work. There's lots of ways that allowing folks to build broken, terrible code can cause long-term problems or even immediate problems and long-term legacy debt. I myself, and you'll have come across this yourself, Wayne, tons of times over the macro and VBA genius who built amazing applications who then decides to go and work somewhere else. That's a massive problem. how do we enable people and how do we contain people at the same time? I think that's where organizations need to find methods and balance and governance and guardrails to allow them to trust the people who can make a difference, to guide the people who are potentially dangerous, but maybe use their ideas or use them as citizen advocates to bring forward things that develop marginal gains or even bigger gains that are then brought with IT teams. You know, could you put a developer into a mentorship role through individuals who were pre-filtered, pre-selected, had to pass particular criteria? Because let's be honest, not everyone can be a coder. But again, Wayne, let's be honest, not everybody wants to be a coder as well. You know, I think how organizations go about putting those guardrails in place with a small g and a small r, that will be the determiner of success. But I think a lot of organizations will try this. It won't quite work because they won't have the guardrails, they won't have the governance. You may not have the executive support behind it. You may pick the wrong people, but they should be learning their lessons. And I'm hoping the article that I will write with the other 18, 20 plus experts and anyone who's listening to this, please feel free to jump in and give your view and opinion and your pluses and your minuses and your warnings and your ways of working that can get this to work. I think there is a way that we can encourage digital dexterity in a business to allow us to use the wisdom of the crowd, maybe not all of the crowd, but definitely the crowd that works in an organization, to change how firms operate, to make folks' lives that little bit more digital, that little bit more enjoyable, that little bit more fun, encouraging happier millennials or workers to bring forward more ideas that's going to allow organizations to accelerate and pivot in this digital age where everyone is dealing at distance. You know, it'll be interesting to see where innovation comes from going forward, but it won't just be IT. It may not even be the business itself. We may need to encourage open innovation where the vendors actually come in and take a risk-based view of an organization or take on more risk themselves, where they and their licensing and their platforms actually put skin in the game. I think we'll see lots of different interesting models. The right vendors will do well. And yes, they will sell more licenses. They will become more embedded in your organization because you'll want them to and need them to. And that may be more than one vendor. And the wrong vendors will, again, still probably sell licenses. People will learn hard lessons. But over time, the market is so transparent that I believe they'll get weeded out. And quite rightly, they should get weeded out as well if they're not in there working in sympathy with a business. Remember, we can't always blame the vendors as well, which I've seen too many times for things going wrong, for an organization not having a good digital or automation strategy, for an organization treating a vendor like a pariah or something that should be trod on and ignored. For any successful organization to work, it's a combination of brilliant partnerships with a set of vendors that are absolutely bought into that organizational goal. The organization treats them as an absolute integral part of the organization. They share the risk and they share the reward for making organizations work in this digital age.
Brilliant. And I think that's an excellent way to end our catch up today. I think it's been a journey through the pros and cons of citizen developer, the concepts. I think there are significant benefits associated with this if you get it right, and risks clearly if you don't. We didn't talk enough, I don't think, about culture. And how getting the right culture is probably going to be key here. So, as you mentioned, I'd love to get comments from the audience on LinkedIn. We are in a position where, those comments, those queries, those questions, that experience can help shape your work on citizen developer and the article that's up and coming. So, Kieran, as always, so insightful, so passionate. And such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for being my first guest on Bots and Beyond. And it'll be great to have you back at some point in the future where, again, we can deep dive on something else that's really topical in the wonderful world of automation. So thank you.
Absolutely delighted, Wayne. Good luck with the series. I think with you in charge of this, my friend, and leading it, It will be an exciting, interesting, and informative and fun listening for everyone. So look, good luck. Absolutely delighted you allowed me to take part. Looking forward to coming back at a later date, and we will see if Citizens Developer worked wonderfully well or crashed horribly. We'll never know.
Excellent. Thanks, buddy. Speak to you soon.
Cheers now.
Thanks for listening to ISG Automation's Bots and Beyond podcast, your weekly dose of all things automation. See you next week for more news and views on RPA, intelligent automation, and AI.